Dragons are without a doubt the most globally recognized mythical monster. This could not be more true than their influence in Chinese culture. They are revered as gods, having connections to the emperor, the constellations, and possessing immense power and control over nature and its elements. Out of the many types of dragons that exist in Chinese mythology, the one I would like to highlight, and is the inspiration for today's build, is none other than the Azure Dragon. So join me on my creative process to know more about this legendary creature. The foundation of any sculpture is most important, using some metal wire to build up the skeleton of my dragon sculpture, along with smaller wire for added support. Once I have the general shape I'm going for, I can bulk this out with aluminum foil. Then I can start adding the clay. I will be building this sculpture up in multiple layers. This first layer of clay, I will be using Super Sculpey medium, cutting it into long strips so I can wrap it around my armature. Chinese astrology divides the sky into 4 regions. Each region was appointed with the cardinal direction of the compass, including a season, and of course, a mythical creature. The Azure Dragon, or Qinlong in Chinese, represents the cardinal direction of the east. It's sometimes called the Blue Dragon. Other sources would claim it to be a Green Dragon, so it's often unclear whether which claim is much more accurate. It's associated with the season of spring and the element of wood, representing growth, renewal, and vitality. Now with the little clay softener, I can smooth out any bumps and fingerprints before baking this first layer. While that's baking, it's that time again to prep all of my scales that I will be manually adding on, starting out small at the tail and going bigger as I progress. The Azure Dragon is one of 4 sacred creatures that represent the Chinese constellations, known as the 4 symbols, but also referred to as the divine beasts, celestial guardians, and many other names. Being a master of the elements, it has power to conjure up wind, rain, and water, possessing mystical abilities to heal, shapeshift, and even grant long life to those it deems worthy. And yes, they can fly without wings, being mystical deities, and are benevolent in nature, unlike their malevolent counterpart in European folklore. In Japan, they are called Seiryu, and it's one of the 4 guardians protecting the city of Kyoto. Now with the main body all scaled up, I can finish making the arms and legs. Once the initial layer of clay is on, I will cover it with some plastic wrap and go over it with this nifty texturing roller, creating a smaller, scaly texture. Moving on to the claws, I pre-made the base with copper wire and will finish them up with more Cosclay. Chinese dragons are depicted to have 5 claws on each foot, while Korean dragons have 4, and the Japanese version has 3. The belief is that imperial dragons originated from China, since dragon culture is very apparent here, being the highest ranking and most powerful type. As the other dragons began to travel and migrate away from China, they lose certain traits and features, which is why the farther away a dragon went, the fewer claws it has. Other examples of this belief is apparent when you compare the Chinese dragon to the Japanese one. The horns on the Chinese dragon are shown to have branches and are often curved, while the Japanese variant tend to have long, singular spears as horns and tend to extend straight out. The facial hair on the Japanese dragon tends to be shorter and spiky and have no mane, while the Chinese dragon have long, flowy manes and beards. I can begin the second most tedious part of this build, which is adding that flowing trail of hair along the back of its serpentine body. Once again, starting at the tail first, making several squiggly tufts of hair that I will then bake. Once they're cool, I can arrange and bind them together with more clay. Then I can continue applying the tens, if not hundreds, of tiny little tufts of hair. Much like when I was adding on the scales, this was a very, very long process. Making this in parts is an important step to my workflow. It allows me to save my current progress and not worry about accidentally smudging or ruining any uncured parts, which has happened to me on multiple occasions on past projects I have done before. After multiple sessions, the body is finally complete. Now I can make the best part, which is the head, bulking out the base first with Super Sculpey medium. Then I can continue on with the rest of this build using more Cosclay. The Chinese Dragon is the quintessential chimeric creature ever conceived, in my opinion. Having the head of a camel or horse, the antlers of a stag, ears of an ox, and a lion's nose. Their eyes range between something like that of a rabbit to a tiger, or even something demonic, depending on the source. Then of course the body of a snake, comprised of fish scales and an armor clam abdomen. The arms and legs of a tiger, with eagle talons at the ends. According to legend, the amalgamation of all these animal parts was formulated by the Yellow Emperor. Remember him from the beginning? Well, in ancient times, China was a country comprised of multiple different tribes. The Yellow Emperor wanted to unify all the different tribes into a single nation in the form of a spiritual totem. After much thought, the Emperor's solution was to take a part from each tribe's totem to make one unique entity, and so the dragon was born. So back to the build. I pre-made some teeth that I will now add to the mouth. Adding some longer teeth to the sides, which could also be tusks. And finally add the antlers and all the hair details needed to finish up this dragon. Fusing the head to the body with some Apoxie Sculpt. Here's the finished base that I made off camera. I was going for a motif of swirly clouds often seen in Chinese artwork. And the Azure Dragon himself. With the sculpting out of the way, we can move on now to the painting. First coloring the abdomen with a light yellow. Brightening it up with some white for color variation. Since it's known to be either a blue or green dragon, I'm just going with both, creating a nice gradient effect, building up these colors using various washes. I had realized after finishing the scales, I should have started painting the hair first. It took me a lot longer to base paint the hair. I was being really careful not to bleed into the blue, trying to avoid any extra touch-ups that I will have to do later on. The head will receive the same color treatment as well, with all the main colors applied. I can now soften up all these bold color choices with yellows and oranges. As for a final touch, I'm lightly dusting this gold paint over the scales for a nice shine and slight color shifting effect. A couple of last minute things are adding the whiskers and painting the base. I will be finishing this off camera so that we can just get on to the final look. This was absolutely one of my all-time favorite creatures to make. For my first dragon sculpture, I think this turned out pretty well, but let me know what you think down in the comment section, as well as any other facts or info I may have missed about the Azure Dragon. If you enjoyed the video, remember to give it a like, and consider subscribing for more videos like this in the future. Thank you so much as always for watching, and I will see you in the next one.